In this assessment, I wanted to go over the ideas around the Renaissance movement and copying and imitation of artifacts and art. In week 2, we looked at the sanctuary of the Holy House of Loreto and the 15th century tale it was brought to Italy by angels during the Crusades. The idea that this building and its origin was tied to Christian mythology made it a place of pilgrimage to become closer with the religion. But it wasn't the only site of the Loreto house, as it had been copied in Prague, which was built in around 1626 and 1631, and in Golub, Poland, around 1634 and 1638, as discussed in Session 2 video presentation. Another object of focus for me in copying and imitation work is the Rotunda of the Holy Sepulchre. In the original in Jerusalem, it has gone through many periods of reconstruction, but the copy in Italy, the Rotunda of the Holy Sepulchre in Aquileia, had been constructed by measurements taken by pilgrims to create a replica back home. The essence being that, although not the original, they still contain the original value, the original essence of the holy place, which we gathered from the 4th week's Session 2 on studiolos and collecting. In Lay R. Clark's Collecting, Exchange, and Sociability in the Renaissance Studiolos. For the Renaissance artists and thinkers, these collections served as learning materials. The copied artifacts evoked the original sense of them. And now to move on to our current modernity, I see a clear connection to this historical idea. Look at the Statue of Liberty in the US, built by Frederick August Bartholdi and framed by Gustave Eiffel. The little backstory is that this sculpture, given as a gift to the US from France, was proposed as a symbol of liberation, the chain at her feet commemorating the abolishment of slavery, and a hope for immigrants who she is pointing in the direction of from the Bay. La Boule hoped this gift would inspire the French people in their own quest for democracy, and this model of liberty wasn't the only iteration of the statue Bartholdi made, but it was the biggest. And we see the statue imitated constantly. There's one in Bongo, Brazil, dedicating the country's independence in 1899, and in China at the Tomb of 72 Martyrs, Guangzhou, which commemorated the 72 men lost in the revolution against the Chinese Empire. But not only in larger works, but as souvenirs, pictures, prints, and variations. From the Marcus Boons in praise of copying, copy comes from the Latin word copia. The Roman goddess Copia, or Ops, was also associated with abundance, mentioned in Ovid's Metamorphoses. And Cercio talks about Ops becoming a general god of prosperity and economy. So in regards to progress, we still find this idea of the copying being a series to what we was originally considered holding the same message and using it as a translation for other events. Thinking how pop culture uses the Statue of Liberty to hark back to liberty and freedom, or as advertisement within the same context. We though also have this negative look on copying different from the early modernist view, which in fact the first instance of copyright law didn't emerge until 1709 in England. Today's modern art tends to go away from the representation. The statement, "it has already been done," echoes as a deterrent. Copying in some instances in the modern day is as seen as a bad thing, and yes, when it comes to plagiarism and gaining money for something you didn't take much time on, it is bad. I'm more talking about the contemporary art movement that shies away from classical inspirations. And when you think about it, the early modernists really embraced the classics but also wanted to elevate and surpass their technical skills. And this is where I feel a contrast between today's modernity has changed from that of the Renaissance. Not that it's black and white, but more like there is a divide of two groups in today's modern where there are people who use the idea of copying having value from the original and using it as a tool, and others that find copying only being a problem within the arts.